Well, we are in the midst of the High Holy Days. Rosh Hashanah has passed, and everything I told you that was revealed to me about the wedding in Cana, the first and the last, the grape harvest at the time of Rosh Hashanah, and thanking the Lord for the grape harvest at the Feast of Tabernacles, all of that is something that happened right after the Feast of Trumpets, the third day, which is the fast of Gedaliah, which represents the destruction of the temple. And Jesus said, tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will build it again. And we are like the living stones. That's why we're given a white stone with a new name on it. And I wanted to let you know that I really need your prayers and your help and support. YouTube, I guess they saw the words Charlie Kirk, so they made all these assumptions that they tried to lower my viewership after I talked about his assassination. And, you know, it doesn't mean that I was a big follower of his. I saw one or two things of his, but that was about it. So I am not a real debating kind of person, so I don't really like listening to a bunch of people kind of arguing a point. You know, it's just not my thing. I wanted to say right here that the whole situation that's going on and Donald Trump saying he would not allow the annexation of the West Bank is not going to go over well with Netanyahu, who wants to expand his territory into all of these different countries and take the land, you know, as part of the biblical territory that was supposedly promised to them. Now, the thing is nobody is allowed to take a DNA test to prove that they're really, you know, a Jewish person or not. And so we make a lot of assumptions that they automatically are because they're there, but they may not be, you know. And by punishing or treating Gentiles like they're some sort of inferior race, how do they know that we aren't Jews that they're persecuting? They don't know. So that's an interesting thought. But, you know, the speech at the UN of all the leaders, including Mahmoud Abbas and the King of Jordan, King Hussein, and all of these countries trying to establish a Palestinian state alongside the state of Israel, is something that so far the U.S. is not for the two-state solution. But King Charles III is very much wanting to be giving Israel and the Palestinians peace and security. And those are the latest words from him. And it's really interesting that President Trump went to the UK and met with the king. I think that they're putting all of these things in place. You know, they wanted to take the Gaza Strip in Israel because they want to build that giant port there, the one that will go out and extend into the Mediterranean Sea and produce all of this trade for the end times. It's interesting that Donald Trump is doing the trade tariffs when that's the whole goal, is to turn the Gaza Strip into the Riviera. That's because they want to create a new Middle East, which is Netanyahu held up that sign just before the Hamas attack on Israel. And then they blamed it on the red heifers, which it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with this Middle East map that he was holding up, expanding into all of these other countries. Anyway, there are a lot of people waking up and realizing that there's corruption going on over there in Israel with the government. And just like here, it doesn't have anything to do with the people, the Jewish people, or anything like that. They're just kind of, you know, whatever their government does kind of affects them, just like whatever our government does affects us. But it doesn't mean we're all for what they're doing necessarily. So it's not going to go over very well when Netanyahu wants to expand into the West Bank, which is Judea and Samaria, and, Hebron, which was the capital before Jerusalem when King David ruled there. So I cannot see that anything good is going to come out of that unless President Trump's using that as leverage because he wants the war in Gaza to end now. To me, it is completely, absolutely insane and absurd that they have not sent in their Navy SEALs or whatever their IDF SEALs are that could rescue those hostages. I would have done it immediately. I would not keep dragging this out for 2 years where these remnant hostages are still being held. It's just not right. And they're being used like collateral. All of these things, I think, are still stampeding things, even though it looks like, because we passed Rosh Hashanah, people lose hope and all of that. But things could still happen when we least expect it with the Lord. So everything I told you is exactly accurate about the wedding feast in Cana, saving the best wine for last, the grape harvest, and God taking the best of the wine, which is the good harvest of grapes, which is the church, taking us to be where he is. So all of that information was 100% accurate. So you don't have to question that or anything. What I do object to is that there were some Watchmen people that I don't really ever watch, but happened to see when it came up on my feed that they were projecting that Jesus was coming on the 23rd. Well, you can't do that, and that absolutely was inaccurate as far as when Rosh Hashanah was actually starting. Because I came on and told you, don't go by these calendars. You have to go by the lunar calendar that shows you what the moon is actually doing, because that shows you when the new moon is, shows you when the first sliver of light is expected. And then I had somebody telling me it was October 7th or October 8th, and it's not, because that is the time frame when the moon is almost at full on the 7th. The next day on the 8th, it's a full moon. So we know that that isn't Rosh Hashanah. So if you're being told that, it's a lie. If you're being told that's from God's calendar, that's a lie. Anyway, it's really sad people give out false information all the time. And then I have people come here and try to tell me that, well, it's passed by and it didn't happen and they're chastising me. I never said those things. So, I've never set a date. What I have told you is the revealing of these other things about the miracle in Cana and the grape harvest, and the timing of that is now. So those things are factual and they will not change. You cannot go back and deny that or say, well, that was wrong, because it was absolutely 1,000% right. And we are still in the high holy days of the Lord, and his timing is his timing. And he's not waiting for us to make the decision. He's going to come when he has set the right and proper time for his appearing. So, the worst thing you can do is come on somebody's channel like mine and make assumptions either about me, or if I mention Charlie Kirk, don't make assumptions that I was a big follower and that, that I listened to him all the time, or, don't make assumptions, because I actually never listened to him. Maybe once or twice he came up in my feed and I heard what he said, but like I said, I don't like to listen to arguing with people who, they get all testy when they don't get their way, and it's just not my thing to I'm more of a calm type person, so I don't like to listen to all of this rhetoric, especially from people that come up with all these crazy ideas that are false. Since all of these other countries are, saying they want a Palestinian state, well, let me just state right here, God told Israel to be a light to the nations. Do you think that's happening? Do you think they're being a light to the nations? When they're killing civilians in Gaza because they are not considered to be the chosen ones, you can't be a light to the nations if you're in war killing people all the time. That will not make you a light. Especially if you're killing innocent civilians and little children, you are not a light to the nations. First of all, accepting the fact that we're all created by God, not just the chosen people, and that God wanted to save us all, that God became our Yeshua, our salvation. He became our Messiah, and he's coming back, and he's going to take the bride that accepted his blood covenant with many to go be with him. But those who refuse him will be left here to deal with the judgment and wrath that's coming because they refuse to believe him and believe in his covenant and testament in his own blood. And that living blood gives us eternal life, also with his Holy Spirit breathing the breath of life into us. And if you don't accept that, you will not have eternal life. And so that's why I urge you to believe in him and give your heart to him today. Circumcise the hardness of your heart from not believing him. So something's going to go on here because President Trump said he would make sure that the West Bank was not annexed by Israel. That is not a popular thing with Netanyahu. Seeing some events recently with Charlie Kirk and the president, it's pretty scary to realize that Mystery Babylon is behind some of the things that have happened. That's just the truth, and it's coming out, and people are exposing it. There's one really important statement that I heard Charlie Kirk say when he was talking about the situation in Gaza, and people said that he was seeing the truth about Netanyahu and all of this stuff. He made this statement without realizing who Mystery Babylon is, that he said Israel was creating a real beast. And that's extremely profound, since Mystery Babylon, the great mother of harlots, is Jerusalem and her people and her ancient monarchy and all of that, dealing with things in the last days. So that was very profound, and I thought I'd share it. Just one more little thing to add here at the end. So it's still very plausible that King Charles III could bring Palestine and Israel under the Commonwealth, which they've both thought about doing in the past, which I proved to you in other videos. And that would broker the peace and give them both the peace and security that's the false peace and security that's never going to come until Jesus returns. So they would definitely have him as king over them, and then be able to put their Sanhedrin people into power. Give them power and authority as kings with the king for 1 hour with the king, and they could do whatever they wanted from that point on, and they could pass all kinds of laws and put people under the burden of the law, which Jesus freed them from the burden of the law because they can never fulfill 613 commandments faithfully and honestly. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know I have not been well and almost went to the ER 2 different times. You know, they were telling me they were going to send an ambulance over, and I was like, I don't want to go over there, because I knew I had been there with my mom, and they would just leave you sitting in there forever. They'd put IVs in you, and they do all this stuff. And I knew that my numbers had jumped and spiked super high like that numerous times in the past, and that eventually I was okay. But it was pretty scary. And like I said, you can see my eye has been, both of my eyes are affected, but this one felt like somebody socked me in the eye. It was very tender to the touch, and it's still kind of blurred, and having difficulty seeing through it, you know, real clearly. So all of this happened because nobody would refill my insulin. Not even the urgent care. I had this weirdo doctor that rolled up her stool right in front of me and nearly touched knee to knee with me, actually threatening me. So I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. Never forget that you have the right to stand your ground, just like what we saw during the 2020 pandemic. And don't ever let anybody belittle you or drag you down or try to force you into signing something. So anyway, I'm going to go for now. I'm trying to get some rest and trying to recoup and recover from this recent episode. And I hope you understand, it can be very critical if your potassium goes skyrocketing or your, you know, blood sugar goes skyrocketing. It can throw everything in your body off, and you can die. You can go into a diabetic coma and die. And so they get all panicky and all of this stuff. So anyway, I'm doing the best I can, trusting in the Lord. And I just want to thank a couple of people who did send me some blessings that helped me this past week. I thank God for that help, because I really do need the help. And I don't make hardly anything on my channel at all. In fact, I made $4 last week and 93 cents or something stupid. So that was on the ads that run, which I can't stand running ads. And I never put the ads in the middle of my videos because I just hate that. But anyway, if you don't run the ads, then they don't give you access to other things, you know, to help your channel. So it's frustrating, you know, trying to do the best job you can with all of these people running the show that are evil. So anyway, please keep me in your prayers, and please, I'd love to hear people in my mail, you know, if you want to send me a donation in my mailbox. All of my PayPal and my donation address is in my description box, but it's also underneath each video because they don't highlight it in my description box because they don't want me to be able to have people click on it and donate. They just do all kinds of crazy things. And anyway, I haven't been well all day yesterday. I pretty much rested, stayed in bed, and then I had to get up and go to the pharmacy and then come back. By the very skin of my teeth, I was able to see a real doctor and get the prescription put through. So I had the insulin. So it, you know, got me back down to where I should be, and hopefully it will continue to stay even, but it's just an ongoing situation. So I have severe neuropathy in my feet and legs, and it was crazy crippling last week to where I was crying. And nobody has any idea because I don't talk about these personal things, but because I almost went to the emergency room twice the last couple of weeks, I thought I'd let you know what was happening. And sometimes I just cannot come on and make a video because I'm just not well. But I'm trying the best I can to get on here when I can, and hopefully my eye will recover, especially this one. And thank you for your prayers and your support, and I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Just wanted to let you know that even though the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah have passed, we're still in the High Holy Days, so the Lord could still come this year. You know, he could come at any of the high holy days, and he could come at any of the other feasts of, you know, appointed times of the Lord. But this is when the last trump is blown at Rosh Hashanah, and all of these other things I told you were 100% true, so you don't have to say, oh, that was wrong, and now we have to renege and feel bad. You don't have to feel bad because it was all truth. And I wouldn't tell you something that wasn't truth on here. You know, I'm a believer in 100% truth. And so I try to always be spot on my channel. Anyway, I'll talk to you in the next episode, and thanks for the love. Thanks for a couple of people I heard from. And I hope people won't not just unsubscribe and leave just because I can't put out a video immediately because something has happened. So thank you so much for your love and kindness, and I appreciate it. And thank you for a handful of people that did care about me and showed it with their financial donation. God bless you. And if you do want to donate, it's paypal.me/KKROCOCO. And my donation address is below the video and in the description box. It would really help me out if I got more support. Thank you so much, and I'll see you later on. God bless. Thanks for listening, guys.